I tell you, business finance is one of the things that I've struggled with the most when it comes to running the companies because, I didn't learn that side of the business as I was a sales guy. My biggest thing I did was track my, sales so I could figure out what my commissions were on a regular basis. But, I think I saw like one P&L, profit and loss statement, in my life before starting my own company.
Yeah, you'd think with the concept that you and I are actually so different on how we think and do things and where our strengths lie, that one of us would be a money person, but somehow we ended up with both of us not being
Yeah,
money
dude.
people. You know,
And
and
we
my
no, so just to that point, and I wanted to come back to that thought, but I heard on a podcast once upon a time, and having kind of a partner in business is almost like having a marriage because you're going to spend a lot of time talking together. And they said the most dangerous marriage in the world is two people with money mindset problems, which is a really,
awesome.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's because you both have the that broke mindset, and that's a massive hurdle to conquer.
Yeah, and and my sales experience was similar to yours. And they shared some financial stuff with us, but it was average revenue per user,
Yeah,
cost per
yeah.
gross ad. We were getting all that stuff, and we were able to see, oh, sweet, our average revenue is going up. That's awesome. CPGA is going down, all that type of stuff. So we understood those metrics, but we didn't see like ROI. They didn't talk to us about, all right, so we spent this much on this marketing event with the Vikings. Here's how much we actually brought in from it. Here's what we can track back to it. So it was really that really high surface level stuff. And yeah, if I didn't have someone that was doing my taxes for me, they wouldn't have gotten done.
Well,
That was literally
it's
not
funny
my
that
thing.
that you said the Vikings thing, because when I was working for a medicine shop, a Cardinal Health company at the time, I do know we spent $1 million on advertising, with the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals. But we don't know I didn't know the impact of that. I mean, I didn't know where that fell in the scheme of $100 million company that division we were at. I guess at that point, but. I didn't know what that meant.
Hmm.
One, at that time, I couldn't wrap my head around what the fuck $1 million was, and I think that money is just a taboo thing, I mean, talking about money is like talking about sex. So, and I know at one point, when I was doing Sandler, my business partner there, I remember him trying to teach me and walk me through the P&L, and it was a spreadsheet full of fucking numbers, and I just didn't give a shit. I wish I would have. All right, it would have made more sense, after I got into business. But there's so many, for me, big words inside of business finance that it's like almost like you need an Encyclopedia Britannica and a
Yeah.
dictionary sitting next to you to wrap your head around all the things that you got to do in business.
Well, and it's like when they talk about, you see in the news and they're talking about profit for businesses. I always ask myself, all right, which profit are they talking about?
Right.
Because there's like four.
Yeah, it's a
And
gross profit, revenue profit.
yeah, and a lot of times people say profit and they actually just mean revenue. It's like, oh, they had record breaking profits this quarter. It's like, no, they had record breaking revenue. Oh, what's their expenses? Yeah, and it's because people don't understand the terms, and I don't think it's just us, because we hear this from people that we work with as well, and that we have in Champion Stable and different success champions in general. They're talking about the conversations they're having with their business partners about cash flow, and it's
Yep.
like, my business partner just did this, and I don't understand how this is going on. So this money thing is a really serious thing, I think, that a lot of people need to really get their head wrapped around, or they're going to have some really huge problems.
Yeah, I was thinking about all the numbers and the things that we look at, and yeah, there's client acquisition costs. There is, ad spend. There's just so many different things that, I mean, for me, I've had to really understand that money is a skill set and has to be learned. And it's like, whether you're looking at your personal finances or your business finances, man, it's you got to learn it. You can't hand this off to somebody else. It's like all those people that want to hire a salesperson because they suck at sales, right? You don't have that luxury when it comes to looking at your numbers. And for the longest time, I didn't want to look at the numbers because
Well,
I
and I
didn't
think
want to say
that's a big
it's
part of it too, because it's that mental mindset of, well, if I don't look at it, it's
it's not
not
that bad.
actually a problem.
Right.
It's okay. I'm just gonna ignore it, and everything will be fine. But that's not how it works.
Yeah. You know, I heard an episode, or Alex Hermosi talking about it, that his greatest motivational factor was cash flow. And I thought that's an interesting thing to learn to earn validation based off of cash flow. And I thought that's a good place to be. I mean, because cash flow in your business is a beast. And cash flow, just because if you're not sure what that is, that's the cash coming in and cash going out of your business. And you got to have enough cash flowing in to cover the cash flowing out. Though, and then you've got to have enough that there's some left over to be investing, paying people and the like. So, but measuring or trying to find validation from cash flow is a really, really cool way of looking at it and looking at your business from an investment standpoint. So that's where I'm really upgrading myself, is how do I take the money and invest it in? Because I know if I ask most small business owners, if I were to hand you $100,000, what would you do with it? Most of them are going to say, I don't know. Because they're not projecting their business forward enough to be able to say, well, this is exactly what I would do with that 100,000, because they don't know the next move, because they're not thinking at scale.
Yeah, and you asked me that question over the weekend. You messaged me. It's like, all right, so if we had $10,000, what would you spend it on? And I was like, all right, so I know what first immediately came into my mind, and then I had a bunch of other ones, and then you had a different idea on how you would have spent it. So, I think that is
Well, let's
a
tell them really
good,
quick. I mean, so I
yeah,
said $10,000. Kevin immediately replied that we would go with the software for the automation
yeah,
uh,
the back end database, because
database.
that
Yeah,
gives us the infrastructure to scale.
yeah, yeah,
So I was like,
and
sweet, we can have that. Now we can add 1,000 members on, and I'm not going to go bald.
you're
So
already bald. What are you talking about?
kind of, not completely. I still have some left.
Yeah,
Uh,
but that's just somebody that is just not willing to commit, is all that is, with that hair that's left. Um, yeah, but for me, I know we need to increase the volume of people coming in. So I agree the database is a actual big thing that we need to knock out. But I also want to start really heavily going after marketing spend and bringing on key personnel that can help bring more brand awareness. So I'd be hiring a YouTube expert, Instagram expert, LinkedIn expert, and getting them to get us completely dialed in on these different platforms. Because for me, revenue, fixes a lot of issues. I'm going
yep.
to start changing that phrase to cash flow fixes a lot of issues, because I really want to start focusing more in that arena. So, but I think oftentimes as you look at your business, you need to be looking at what's the long game, what's the long play here, and how are you allocating your money to reinvest in your business. And I think that's a big shift for a lot of
Yep.
people, because you go from working from somebody to your own company. You think, how do I pay myself, right? How do I keep more of the money, and what new toy can I buy myself moving forward, versus how do you invest in the business.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to have Hannah on with us today, is that usually when you talk to a finance expert for business, whether that's an accountant or a CFO for hire, or you're a bookkeeper, a lot of them are really just focused on the numbers piece, and they're really focused on, all right, so how do we track the numbers? How, what do the numbers mean? She actually adds in that personal piece, which
Yeah.
I think is really cool, on helping people figure out why their heads react to money conversations the way they do. And I think that's a huge piece. And that's something that, we've been working on just in general for ourselves. And like, right, so what are our major mental blockages about growing success champions and going bigger, and then working through them? I think you have to have those same conversations about money. So I think Hannah's going to be a really badass conversation for us.
Yeah, yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. She just brings a fun twist anytime you talk to her, and she just got a gentle nature as a whole that I love. So y'all strap it in. It's gonna be a fun episode as we sit and talk with money with Hannah Chapman. All right, so I'm really, really stoked to have Hannah on here today. She spoke at our Badass Business Summit, and dude, she just flat out crushed it. The number of people that came up to me afterwards, just bragging about everything she talked about, was really, really cool. So I'm stoked to have her here today, and we're really going to focus in on the mindset of your business finances and your personal finances, and why those two things should not be the same, and how much they screw it up. So Hannah, let's jump right in. Why the hell do so many entrepreneurs carry their personal financial head trash into their business?
Oh, that's the question, isn't it? Like what is going on? Why do we do this to ourselves? And honestly, I think the main reason is because we don't identify the money stories that are coming up from literally, every experience we've had up until this point. It's like we run these patterns of how we understand money, how we understand what it means to provide, how we understand what it means to be provided for from our childhood. And unless we actually like look at them and say, oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to fear having money. I don't have to fear, getting money, asking for money. All of that stuff is just it's a head programming that we keep running on repeat until we interrupt the pattern and choose a new one.
When you say the word money story, define that for me.
Yeah. So a money story, or you might hear it come up as like a money block. You might say something like that. It's something that stops you in your tracks from doing the thing that you need to do. So that could be, getting on a sales call, right? And it comes to the point where you need to tell the person how much it costs to work with you. And then suddenly your whole body contracts and you're like, "Ugh," like, I don't want to tell them that it costs $5,000 to do this, right? What are they going to say? And you start playing from your playbook what they're going to say, why they're going to reject you, right? And so all of the fears come up when you even approach that subject of this costs money. The other side of that would be the entrepreneurs who are like, I just want to help everybody. I just want to, so I want to be affordable. I want to be available because I just want to help everyone. Like, well, guess what? You're not actually like providing for yourself if all you're doing is, keeping your prices so low, because that's a money story of that's how I get love, is by being available. And if I up my prices, then people aren't going to love me. Right. And so we don't necessarily equate those things. We're like, no, that's personal and this is business. But as soon as you feel that wave of heat in your body, right, when you go to tell someone what your prices are, or when someone rejects you and says, no, this isn't for me right now, that emotion that comes up, that flash, your pits get all sweaty, like all of it, everything that happens is a marker that, oh, there's something going on deeper. You don't have to react that way
Kevin,
when
you've
something
never
like that
gotten
happens.
sweaty or nervous on a sales call ever, have you?
Well, I was saying to a sales call that I wasn't planning on having this week, that I ended up having this week, where it was a friend of mine was like, yeah, we want to do some drip campaigns and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool, awesome. So we're talking about it. And then I'm like, all right. And he's like, so how much is this going to cost? I'm like, no, $2,000 a month. And my my head trash at the time wasn't, I didn't really have a problem with saying the $2,000 a month. It was, my head trash was going to the, all right, he is traditionally not a person who has a lot of fluid capital to do stuff. And, I'd really like to help him but I also understand that I have a responsibility for what my time is worth, and I can't bring
Yeah.
on free people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and then really thinking about, it's like, why am I even having this conversation? Because I know this isn't going to be a
Mm-hmm.
See, and I had an interesting one this week pop up too. Actually, it was last week. I gave a speech, and after the speech, so the gal who got me to speak had never seen me speak. We've been friends for years. She runs a small summit, and she'd never seen me speak before. And so she invited me out last minute. One of our other speakers backed out. She called me up. She goes, "Hey, can you fill in?" So when I go to the front of the room, she goes, "Hey, I got a whole bunch of questions for you, that I can ask you to help you through this speech." And I said, "Can we try something?" And she goes, "Sure." I said, "How about you just let me free flow and do what I do, and we'll see what happens if you feel like you need the questions and ask me." She goes, "All right, let's try it." And it was funny because I watched her slowly going from the front of the room to slowly moving, and all of a sudden she was sitting in the audience listening, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
'cause I know how I'm good in front of a room, and but afterwards, and she walked up to me. She goes, "Dude, that was unbelievable." She goes, "People were hugging you afterwards. It was insane the amount of energy you put in that room. But we didn't talk about a speaker fee before you came and spoke. So I have a $300 speaker fee." And my exact words, and I'm like, "You son of a bitch," were, "Oh, keep it." And then
Yeah.
freaking her assistant walked up to me and said, "Hey, did Deb tell you about the speaker fee of $300?" I said, "Oh, y'all keep it." Twice I
They're
turned down
trying to
free
throw
money.
money at you.
Yes, they're trying, and I want to tell you, I was like, "Son of a bitch, where the hell does that damn money story come from?" But that's exactly what you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about, is all those things or reactions to things that we have that pop up at various moments in time, and they're all dependent on usually shit that happened to us in our
and
past.
and that is why
Right.
Donnie isn't with Chippendales anymore, because he kept turning down the dollar bills.
They kept trying to, yeah,
I
exactly.
still look good in the Speedo though, so
No, that's it. That's exactly it. And the way that you just described that, it was the knee jerk,
yep.
right? It was your knee jerk reaction to be like, "Oh no, no, I'm just doing this for you," rather than pausing for a moment. And what I would have you even think about, like now, like to redo, this is a practice that I go through with my clients. Literally redo it in your own mind of when they say, "Oh, our speaker fee is $300." Pause, don't knee jerk react, take a breath and say, "Thank you.
Smart.
Thank you." Right? Give yourself a moment. And then if you, on reflection, say, "You know what? I really appreciate that I got to do this," and give an explanation for why you would reject the money, or you can still choose, right? You're not running an old pattern. You're
Yeah,
interrupting the pattern.
I love that. It's literally a reprogramming. What's funny is I've sold $1 million deals, right? And I've
Mhm.
been around some massive fucking transactions. So I was talking to Mandy Morris, who's my therapist, and talking to her about it. And like, why did I respond that way? And she goes, "It's Christmas money." I said, "Explain what Christmas money is." And she goes, when the holidays get here, you want to make sure everybody feels good. So you end up spending more money because you want to make sure everybody really enjoys Christmas. Well, when we get in these moments in our head, we have these Christmas moments or these Christmas story moments where, because I felt so good coming off the stage, it was
Mm.
almost wanting to make sure everybody got to that same level of feedback. But I love the pause at the end of that, because it if you don't change the state of your mind in a moment, you'll revert to the state you're most comfortable with.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had conversations with my mom, who was the director of the credit card division for a bank. So she has business conversations. She talks to people about money all the time, and she's like, I just don't know how you can do sales, because how you asking people to give you money. I'm like, Mom, you
Mhm.
run a credit card company. Um, and
You
and
see
so
people spend
it's,
money,
yeah,
right?
but it's that whole different idea of how she works with money, from the accountant looking bookkeeper style stuff, than managing a whole bunch of people who manage that for a division of a bank, and then me going out and actually selling stuff. So
Mhm.
there's a whole different mindset for that type of conversation, as opposed to managing money and being able to talk finances and columns and and helping people understand, yeah, well, no, you actually owe this much on your credit card, and you have to pay it, or, no, you can't buy that. You have to deposit more because this was a secured card. So, a completely different type of conversation. And so is it the money that is the issue, or is it the asking for it?
Yeah,
Good
that's
question.
that is a really fabulous question, because money is data. Money is just a number. Money just is. It's not, money itself is not emotional. It's our experience of money that is emotional. It's our understanding of what money means to ourselves and to the person that, across from us. That part is emotional. The financial decision making is emotional. The money itself just is. Um,
Something that helped me wrap my head around this, Hannah, was thinking or understanding that making money is a skill set.
yes, yeah.
So it's not anything other than learning the skill of making money.
Hmm.
Now, there are factors that play into it. Your upbringing and the likes may play into it. And some people grew up in environments where it's never talked about for generations. Like
Right.
I come from a very, very blue collar family that, we didn't talk about money in the household. We still don't talk about money in the household, other than if somebody gets something new, the first word out of anybody in my family's mouth is, "Ooh, what'd that cost?" You
Right.
know,
Right.
which is its own different headdress. So when you're brought up in an environment where nobody's ever talked about money, it can be a massive mental leap to start changing your money stories. But for me, changing it to money, making money is a skill set means, okay, now it's just something I have to go learn, which allowed me to pull a lot of the emotions out of the damn thing.
Right. And for me, truly, Kevin, you brought up a really good point, that like the data, like looking at money objectively, looking at it as, again, that it's just information. So I have two businesses, X Squared Wealth Planning. We do that, right? In that we look at all of the data and the numbers and like really take an honest assessment of where we are. And on the business planning side of that, a lot of people put these partitions, or these silos up, that this is my personal money, or this is my income that I'm taking from my business, and this is the business. But what they don't realize is that when they are having trouble asking for the sale, when they are having trouble pricing their services accordingly, when they are having trouble collecting on invoices, those three things, like even just those three, will 100% affect what they're able to then do with their business, their revenue, their income, their stability. So instead of just saying, all right, what are you paying yourself, and let's plan from there, no, we have to dive into the business. We have to bring that same level of awareness to what's happening when someone isn't paying your invoice. What are you, it's not what are they doing, it's what are you feeling, what's coming up for you. And you know what the story usually is? I've like emailed them, and then I called them and left a message, and they didn't get back to me. And that was when was that? It was like a week or two ago. I'm like, okay, so what happens if you hold yourself into the esteem of, I did that work, they agreed to pay that money, and let's just go have an honest conversation about what's owed, rather than, oh, it feels bad.
Well,
It feels bad to ask someone for money.
is it that people are bringing their own personal financials into the business? Meaning,
They're selling
if
from someone, they're selling from someone else's pocket, right? Is that what the
yes, yes,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
Yes, they are
because
putting themselves there.
they don't like the collection calls or in the likes that they may be getting. So now they're
Hmm.
on the other end of the phone and they're instantly going, God, I know how shitty that feels.
Right.
So I don't want to do that to somebody else.
so
Exactly.
it's interesting because you have the people on one hand who can't ask for money, who can't ask for the sale, um, but are okay with money as a data point and can look at it and do all that stuff and play with the figures and manage a budget. But then you have the opposite. You have the people like me and Donnie who are quite fine asking for the sale, but we don't want to look at the data. you know we
Yeah.
uh we have to look at our bank account. We have to actually figure out cash flow. We have to do all that stuff. We
Mhm.
have to actually enter stuff into our books. Is what causes someone to be okay with that, but then have the whole aversion to actually knowing what's going on in their business and looking at money from that way.
That that typically looks like it's a defense mechanism is what it typically is that I'm selling, I'm working, I'm doing the work, right? Here I go, I am going to put the blinders on here so that I don't have to feel bad in some way, shape, or form if it's not matching.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, so if the bank account is not a reflection of the work,
Mhm.
then it may be proved a theory or a thought process of, well, maybe you're not working as hard as you think you are,
Right.
right?
Right.
Something along the lines.
Exactly. Then you spiral back into those feelings of like not doing enough, right? And so it tends to be a head in the sand issue. It doesn't mean you're putting your head in the sand everywhere, but it is a place where entrepreneurs will put up, just like a heavy curtain. Like, nope, not looking at that, and I'll just when shit blows up,
I'll
we'll deal
handle
with
it
it then.
then.
Yeah. I've
Right,
always
right.
figured it out, right?
Right, exactly. That's literally the language. I've
Mhm.
always made it through before, I don't know, it just always tends to work out. And it always tends to work out until your business is the one that's like, here's the recession. You have not created any sort of safety at all, and you're the one who doesn't have time to pivot. You're the one who can't cover any payroll for more than a week. You're the one who has to lay off everything and go back to square one because you weren't willing to look at it proactively when things were going when things were humming along, when there could have been choices that you could have made to set yourself up for, because the challenging times will always come.
For
They
sure.
will
And I
always
think
come.
a lot of that stems from people are actually trying to recreate a job and not actually build a company.
Mhm.
They want to work less than they did when they work for others,
But get paid
but do it
more.
on their own time. Yeah, but get paid more, do it on their own time, and have this idea of freedom. So they're trying to recreate an environment where they can only work when they want to, do things. They negate the idea that they actually need to build a company, and that's a lot of fucking hard work.
Mhm.
And it's leaning into doing the hard things, learning the cash flow, learning to sell, learning to do the operational things, learning to do a lot of the boring, mundane things that's required to run a successful business. And I think this goes right hand in hand. It's just one of those things where people want it to be easy. They don't want it to be hard. So they want it to be, okay, let's just set it, forget it, let's plug it in, let's go, and then let's run away from it all. So I think this is cool to put this into the entire scope of things. How does someone go about start working on their money stories? Well, first, how do they identify their money stories? Let's go there.
Yeah, identifying money stories. There are different ways to do it. Usually, to do it proactively would be through doing some, like asking those introspective questions. If you want to start identifying those without it being a reaction, because most of the time it's that it's a reaction to something, right? It is that, oh, that invoice didn't get paid on time, I have to make payroll, and then what's coming up, right? What are the emotions that are coming up when a negative money occurrence happens? Also, what is coming up when a positive money instance happens, right? Either way, what your emotional state brings up when anything that touches money comes into your world, that's starting, to tell you clues. And for most people, most things are negative, right? If things are good with money, you're not really like thinking about it. It's when the like, oh shit, I don't have what I want, or I want that thing and I can't have it, or I have to pay this bill and I'm going to have to shift these things around, right? That's where we tend to feel those emotions coming up. And you can then like walk that back. What does that remind me of? What does that remind me of from when I was a child? What does that remind me of from when I was a teenager? Or even in college, right? A lot of us have these money stories of I know when I was in college, man, I think we could make it on like $15 a week for food. I have no idea, right? Like, how did we even do that? But there are money stories from that are imprinted on all of us, and the way to do it proactively is to kind of clear that quiet space and ask yourself, like, dive into what is my earliest money memory, and just sit with that until it comes. And for some people, it's like a client, oh my God, it was such a good one. The other day, she said, my earliest money memory is my dad coming in with a tote bag full of bills. Like he was a lawyer and he ran a law firm. And that was when she was just really, really little, and took his tote bag and dumped it and like had all the bills that he had to pay. Um, and it was so interesting. So we kept exploring that, and how that was, there was another piece to it that also was like, oh, there's the puzzle piece that's showing you why this pattern is repeating on loop now that you're 40. And she was like, oh, like, I didn't even connect that, but the feeling is the same. The feeling that I get when I have to utilize credit in one way or another, right? It like feels like shame. Why does it feel like shame? Why does it feel like shame to use debt in your business? That's a normal thing, right? A lot of us do that, and it's necessary at sometimes, and sometimes it's not, right? But we can make that choice about it, and there's no reason for shame or guilt to be tied to it. So if shame or guilt is tied to something that comes from a money decision, that's one of your first clues of, whoa, where is this coming from? Shame, fear, and guilt are the three main ones.
It's so fascinating because literally that correlates to anything else you're doing, whether in life or business. Is
Hmm.
those emotions are some of the biggest emotions that pop up when you're trying to do things. You could say the same thing whether it's a sales call, whether it's following processes in your company, in the likes. All of those emotions, good or bad, are all triggers off of something that most likely occurred in our past. And and I'm not big on the woo woo side of things. I
Yes, he
really like
is.
the action. No, no. Once upon a time, man, I fell hook, line, and sinker for all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't care who's you look up to or think is successful, and I don't care how many times they tell you that they're manifesting their destiny by freaking magically fairy dust. You go look at all the hard work they put in. They busted their ass to get where they are,
Hmm.
and are just using that platform to sell air. I don't know, but you know, just the idea for anybody is that self exploration of where you're actually getting to know the person in the mirror. Because
Right.
uh, it took me almost losing everything to finally start looking at, okay, who the hell am I? Who is this guy? How's he showing up?
Yeah, and I
Um,
think that's true for most of us. That it takes that triggering event of some sort where things are crumbling around you. For me, it was when, I was being told I wasn't going to be successful as a financial advisor because I wasn't doing it the way that the 70-year-old white guys were doing it.
right,
Like, I
right.
can't sell like you because I'm not you, because I don't want to, because it feels terrible to me. And so, when that was crumbling, my world was crumbling around me. And that was a huge turning point for me to look inside and say, what do I want? What do I want to create? What do I know? I know that I'm here for this purpose, for what I'm doing right now. And when I turned around and did it on my own, there we go.
Yeah. Dude, I will
Living well is the
say
best revenge, right?
absolutely. And I keep telling everybody that if you want to meet the person in the mirror and you really want to figure out who you are and how to find success in life, start a business.
Hmm.
Because there is no greater tool on this planet to get punched in the face than to put yourself out there, get to a point where you run out of excuses and realize life's on you. Uh, you either will chicken out and go back to corporate America and get a job and go work for somebody else, or you're going to meet the person in the mirror because you're going to put your head down, get to work, and get after it.
Hmm.
I've never, so many entrepreneurs I've talked to hit that point, that moment of, all right, what the fuck? It's time to do something here.
Right.
So,
I think there's
um,
this huge disconnect in our society as a whole about how money is created.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think a lot of
it's
people,
just printed, right?
yeah, exactly. They don't
In excess.
Yeah, they don't understand, because you see this all the time, and because right now we're in such a divided state in our country, with one side and the one versus the other side, with a lot of people talking about, not understanding why billionaires are billionaires, and why you need that much
Hmm.
money. But I think the big issue is they don't understand what they did to get there. I think a lot of people just have this assumption that, if you're a billionaire, you just have the money. As we have a completely different viewpoint as business owners, the three of us, knowing, no, you don't
You know how much
have.
fucking work
Yeah,
they had to do to get there?
exactly. It wasn't, obviously there are people who just get, oh, hey, here's your silver spoon, and you're now a billionaire because your dad passed away. Here's all the stuff that does happen, yes.
Hmm.
But for the bulk of people who become millionaires, even, there was a lot of effort to do that, and there is
Hmm.
a lot of time and experience that goes on, and I think people don't understand how capitalism works, and the whole concept of how you create something that people want, and that's how you generate revenue.
Yeah.
And I think that really sets up that mindset of, well, you should just pay me stuff. Well, why?
Right. Yeah. You're touching on something that is actually like, it's a huge piece of my heart, to change the way that we view what it means to be prosperous, to change the way how we view being a billionaire, and a millionaire, and how we allow the process of creating prosperity to touch others' lives. So billionaires, like, you know, um, or Cuban, or,
Elon
any
Musk.
Elon Musk, right? Yeah. I mean, that there's a little bit of difference when you're talking about, like, you have like one stock that, can really change, someone's net worth, like Tesla or Amazon. But any billionaire, I think Richard Branson is an
Yep.
excellent example of this. He allows new innovations to come into the world. He is so full of ideas, right? And then he goes and finds the right person to implement that idea. But what he's doing is he's creating value. He's creating things that people want to buy. He is, making things better than what he experienced. And really, the measure of wealth is not what uh, Richard Branson doesn't just like make money and then keep it. Yeah, he has a lot of money, but what's happening is that more is flowing to him and through him. He has figured out how to allow wealth to, come to him in so many different ways, and been able to be a good steward of that. And so that so many families, so many people are, his employees across all of his companies, right? They are making living wages because of him. They are able to buy and like push money out into their own economies because of that. So it's not the fact, yeah, he has billions of dollars that are still his, but trillions and trillions are passing through the economy because of him. And
Yeah.
every billionaire that exists, for the most part, has created something new in the world, or their previous generations created something new in the world that really impacted millions and billions of lives.
That's so awesome. So, Hannah, we could sit here and chat with you all day long, girl.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome. How do people find you?
Oh, two ways. Expansiveceo.com is my newest business baby. And X Squared Wealth Planning is my wealth planning firm. That's X and then the numeral 2 wealthplanning.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, YouTube, the Expansive CEO podcast, Facebook, Instagram, all over the freaking place.
That's awesome. Girl, thank you so much for doing this. Love hanging out with you. Thank you for just being the badass you are. And
Yeah.
man, go continue to impact and change lives.
Same to you guys.
See you, babe.
Bye.
So that was cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I still can't believe that I fucking, turned down free $300 twice.
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 Twice. But I think that's the whole idea, and I love that whole concept of that Mandy talked about, and then Hannah dived into that. It's
The
Christmas money.
Christmas
It's like
money, yeah.
I want to make everyone feel excited about what they're doing and feel as good as I do right now, because I know I'm that way around Christmas. Like, ooh, what's a cool ass gift that's probably going to cost too much, but I'm going to get it anyway. Me and my mom were talking this year at Christmas, just before Christmas, and she's like, "Yeah, I got the Christmas presents, I think I spent like $50 for so and so." I'm like, oh, so we're not following the $25 a gift rule for it's like, well, that's a guideline that's like a minimum. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll reword that for next year. So but that's totally what Christmas is. It's like, ooh, how much money can I
Yeah.
spend since I want someone else to
Dude,
have this really cool
our family
experience?
around Christmas used to look like the Who's and Whovilles that are like maxing out credit cards and they're like celebrating. I just maxed out my 12th credit card. Uh,
Woohoo! Christmas is gonna be awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
and I love that concept, and then to your point, I love Hannah's reframe of where all that comes from.
yep. Yeah, and which leads really into that, that the stories, the money stories. And
Yeah,
I was when we were talking about that with Hannah, I was literally going through my head thinking about, all right, so how was money talked about when I was a kid growing up on the farm? And it was interesting because I can remember dad and mom having taken over the kitchen table with all the bookkeeping stuff for the farm and doing all the records and entering in, all right, we sold these and got this, and then we bought feed and putting in all this detailed stuff manually. And it wasn't even, like now you can go into QuickBooks and then type it all in. No, this is like literally writing it down. And I remember that really vividly, but I don't really remember like talking about money, other than when we'd be shopping for school clothes and like, oh mom, those are the coolest jeans, I got to have those for school. And she's like, yeah, no, those are too expensive, we're not spending $100 on jeans for a kid that's going to grow out of them in 2 months. That's not a thing. And so other than that, there wasn't really, they didn't talk about money in front of me.
yeah, and we didn't talk about money either, but I grew up dirt damn poor. And, I literally remember teachers handing me a bag of clothes, as a kid. And you know, mom worked in factories, dad was a truck driver, growing up, and they didn't talk about money ever except for not having any. And I think that carried along with me for quite a while, even to a point of we made a major family move going from Kansas to Texas and moving in with family. And if it wasn't for my oldest brother working a job and paying for the move, we wouldn't have been able to afford to make the move. And that was the greatest, thing that ever happened to our family at that point, was getting out of Kansas and getting closer to some family in Texas. And it put us into a opportunity to get into a higher career field for my parents and better schools for us. And dad ended up retiring from Xerox, and mom ended up retiring as a receptionist. But they would have never gotten those opportunities had they not got out of there. So, but I think that I still come from a take care of everybody mentality. Mom and dad were always picking up the dinners they couldn't afford. They were always, making sure we got to go do the things that they couldn't afford. I remember begging to go to a church camp one time, and they literally couldn't afford it. And I went to tell the church that I couldn't go, and me and the youth minister got into a fist fight over it because they told me that I was supposed to be a leader of these kids, and there was no way I couldn't go. And I told him, like, literally, we cannot afford it. And he told me I was letting down the church and everything. Got right up in my face, so I cold cocked him. So and
All right,
and
that is a story that you and I are gonna have to talk about more at some point.
Oh, dude, I've got so many stories around the churches I went to. It was insane. But literally, there was a lot of times that when I came home and told mom and dad what happened, next thing I know, they were paying for the damn church camp. But I went with a different church. I didn't go with my own church. Which is interesting all in itself. But I think there was oftentimes mom and dad always tried to do right by us and didn't give a shit what it cost them financially. And I think I've lived up to that standard. If we go out to the bars, that Christmas money idea comes into play. I want to pick up the tab for everybody. I want everybody to have a good time, so continuing to explore where all that stuff comes from is going to be a fascinating tale. So, guys, I hope you got some value out of this one. We sure did. It was really fun talking to Hannah. Got some great takeaways and some thoughts to go explore. Do us a favor, make sure that you're subscribed to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and ring that bell for us so you get notified of upcoming episodes. Leave a comment, send us a message, and share this out with people. I'd love to get your thoughts and takeaways on this one. So make sure you share this out with one person. And as always, love you, mean it. See you, bye.